Well, welcome back. This is Election 23, the Road to the Beehive. And now let's take a look at what Todd McClay had to say. We've got business journalist Tim McCready from the Herald's Mood in the Boardroom series. He's a business strategy consultant. He's worked with global corporates and startups in the agri sector here in New Zealand and overseas. He loves the politics, and I guess first up, what did you think of Todd McClay, Tim?
Yeah, I thought it's really clear that Todd is very much across the detail, and it's worth remembering actually that he's only held the agricultural spokesperson role since I think March this year after Todd Muller's announcement that he was going to retire. That feels like a really long time ago, but he's obviously spent a lot of time on the farm and with stakeholders. He did a good job of rattling through those key policies of National, and I think. What I found really interesting is when you asked about if he's going to be the agricultural minister in the next government. That's, of course, a question that's up in the air at the moment. I know there's a few people within ACT that would like that portfolio, and he was really careful with what he said there. He just stuck to his party vote National line.
Absolutely. I also asked him about farmers' support for National relative to ACT, and it seemed ACT, to my mind, has got the upper hand there. Do you think he made his case there?
Yeah, it's harder than usual for National in this election when ACT is polling so strongly and is so visible and getting so much media as well because of it. And we can't also forget that ACT has a really prominent representative, right? Former Fed Farmers President Andrew Hoggard running to be an MP and potentially that next agricultural minister. So I did find I found it really interesting. He conceded that National perhaps wasn't fit to be in government in that 2020 election, but he made it clear that they have the policies now to do it. So yeah, he made the case. If you're going to swing away from Labor, come to National, don't go to ACT.
I would suggest Hoggard might end up as associate minister, because I think it's, to come into Parliament with no experience whatsoever and then get a big cabinet role like that would be, or minister's role, should I say. That's quite a step, isn't it?
It is a step, yeah. I mean, we do see that sometimes. I mean, Aisha Verrill came in and she, rose pretty quickly up into cabinet for Labor, into that health portfolio, because she had the background. But yeah, you're right. Big change.
What about his role as Minister of Hunting and Fishing?
Yeah, I think that probably has some merit. Although I think it is interesting to note that we do have a Minister of Sport at the moment, along with a Minister of Agriculture and Conservation. So I'm not entirely sure that couldn't be represented in those existing portfolios. I also saw recently that National announced it's going to introduce a Minister for Space as well as a Minister of Technology. So there seems to be a bit of focus from them in these sort of other areas where there might be a little bit of redundancy, but I also wonder if maybe that gives them a few more cards to hand out when it comes to that sort of horse trading after the election, when they've got to hand out portfolios to the various coalition parties.
We spoke quite a bit about trade agreements and National's plan to grow the relationship with India particularly. Where do you see that going under a national government?
Yeah, there's been a really big push for India. That's obviously going to be an increasingly important market. As Todd said, it's a big population. They're becoming wealthier. They're becoming consumers that will want some of our valuable exports. I was actually there was a recent India Business Summit held, the inaugural summit, and Todd was there and he spoke really enthusiastically about visiting India frequently if he's the next trade minister. I think you can see he's really keen to get back into that old role that he used to hold. It is worth noting too that Chris Hipkins also spoke at that summit, and he's made a similar promise to visit India in the first 100 days if he's re-elected. So I think both those two major parties are keen to hone in on India, and they see that as a priority. Following
the lead set by Australia. Now, do you think he made a strong case for New Zealand to loosen restrictions on biotech, and particularly that genetic modification, genetic editing question?
Yeah, it's interesting. I took actually a keen interest in this a few years ago. Actually, after the 2017 election, National's then MP Parmjit Parmar, she did a lot of work on this in this space. And interesting to note, she's now running for the ACT Party. She's number 7th on the list, so she's going to come in with that quite strongly behind her as well. But yeah, it is time to revisit this. As Todd said, the rules around this were created in the 1990s. A lot has happened. And, there's all sorts of advantages there in terms of climate and in terms of, drought-resistant grass and those environmental benefits of lower methane potentially. So, yeah, I think it does seem crazy that we have some great researchers at Ag Research developing these things, and yet they can't be used here.
Absolutely. Well, Tim, thank you. That is our program. Thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate your thoughts on Todd McClay.
Thanks a lot.
Righty-ho, that's our program. National Ag and Trade spokesperson Todd McClay, the guest tonight. I'm Mark Leishman. Our final interview is with National leader Christopher Luxon. So thank you so much for watching. Election 23, Road to the Beehive.
Brought to you by Sky Country Media. rural marketing specialists and producers of Country TV.